Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to talk about the recent furore regarding the removal of Anglo-Saxon from certain school curriculums because, well, there appears to have been a bit of drama around it, and I'd just like to bomb some information into this conversation, as I am wont to do. So you probably saw some articles and videos all around and about the place about how the term Anglo-Saxon needs to be removed from certain historical syllabi and things like that, under the idea of decolonizing the curriculum. This usually goes hand in hand with other leftist rhetoric around decolonization or removing whiteness and all of these sorts of things. Now, the reason that I bring up the remove whiteness is because this is sort of the Motte and Bailey that they use. The actual position that they want to state is remove white people, and I am going to demonstrate why that is their actual position shortly. And then the more easily defensible position that they retreat to when called out is, oh no, we're decolonizing things, we're just removing whiteness, and whiteness doesn't have anything to do with white people, it's just a pattern of behavior. To which, of course, the obvious question is, well, why do you call it whiteness then, if it's got nothing to do with white people or white skin or anything along those lines, and it's just a pattern of behavior? Why not give it a name that is less racialized, or a name that could be perceived as less racialized or wrongly perceived as being racialized? Well, the reason is it is a racialized term. That is their main goal. They just want to hide it from you, because leftists always play word games like this. So what is this decolonization thing that they want to do? Why do they want to remove the term Anglo-Saxon from history? Why do they want to deny that Anglo-Saxons exist? Why do they want to erase white people? Well, the answer is decolonization. We've heard this term over and over and over the years. Now, in leftist academia, the term decolonize actually has a very extensive and documented history, and that's what I'm going to introduce you to today, assuming you haven't already seen all of this. So the main text and person that I'm going to be drawing upon for this is Frantz Fanon and his book Wretched of the Earth, which I've mentioned before, but this is going to be going into it in a little more detail. So why Frantz Fanon in particular? Well, the answer is he has been a very influential author for left-wing thought, specifically Marxist and communist and socialist thought. Now, a good part of the reason for this is he is a scholar of colour, an author of colour, as these people like to refer to it, because whenever non-white people do anything or say anything, it's instantly of more merit and more worth than when a white person says it. Because these people are anti-racist, you see how that works. Different people's work has different values based on the colour of their skin. It's anti-racism, don't you know? So Frantz Fanon has been considered a very important intellectual in this field, and has been very influential in post-colonial studies, critical theory, Marxism, and was actually called in the book Decolonization: A Short History the most influential anti-colonial thinker of his time. His writings have gone on to inspire several national liberation movements around the world. This would include Ali Shariati's Islamic Revolution in Iran, Steve Biko and the African Socialist Movement in South Africa. Yes, the South Africa with the white genocide, which is very relevant to what we're talking about today. He also influenced Malcolm X in the United States and Che Guevara in Cuba. He is quoted in the book Black Power: The Politics of Liberation, and his books and activism have been referenced repeatedly by the Black Panther Party. One of his other books, Black Skin, White Masks, is often cited as being one of the progenitor texts for the entirety of the contemporary black queer theory. So Frantz Fanon is very influential. His writings are very important to the situation that we find ourselves in now. Do not let leftists gaslight you on this, as they always do when you start quoting their own literature. They will always go back to, that's not real, that's not mine, that's not what I believe, that's not what we believe, that's not what it really is. Yes, it is. Do not let them lie to you. So, decolonization and the wretched of the earth, and why it explicitly means, when it talks about decolonization, getting rid of white people. Killing them. Anytime you see leftists talking about the need to decolonize something, you are hearing them talk about violence against the colonizer, and I'm going to demonstrate that by quoting from Wretched of the Earth. The first chapter of the book is simply titled On Violence, and I'm just going to read some highlighted passages for you. Let's begin. Quote, Decolonization, which sets out to change the order of the world, is clearly an agenda for total disorder, but it cannot be accomplished by the wave of a magic wand, a natural cataclysm, or a gentleman's agreement. In its bare reality, decolonization reeks of red-hot cannonballs and bloody knives. For the last can be the first only after a murderous and decisive confrontation between the two protagonists. This determination to have the last move up to the front, to have them clamber up, too quickly some say, the famous echelons of an organized society, can only succeed by resorting to every means, including, of course, violence. It's a world with no space. People are piled on top of one another. The shacks squeezed tightly together. The colonized sector is a famished sector, hungry for bread, meat, shoes, coal, and light. The colonized sector is a sector that crouches and cowers, a sector on its knees, a sector that is prostrate. It's a sector of niggers, a sector of towelheads. The gaze that the colonized subject casts at the colonist sector is a look of lust, a look of envy, dreams of possession. Every type of possession, of sitting at the colonist's table and sleeping in his bed, preferably with his wife. The colonized man is an envious man. The colonist is aware of this as he catches the furtive glance, and constantly on his guard, realizes bitterly that they want to take our place. And it's true, there is not one colonized subject who at least once a day does not dream of taking the place of the colonist. The church in the colonies is a white man's church, a foreigner's church. It does not call the colonized to the ways of God, but to the ways of the white man, to the ways of the master, the ways of the oppressor. And as we know, in this story many are called, but few are chosen. As soon as the colonized begin to strain at the leash and to pose a threat to the colonist, they are assigned a series of good souls who in these symposiums of culture spell out the specificity and richness of Western values. But every time the issue of Western values crops up, the colonized grow tense, and their muscles seize up. During the period of decolonization, the colonized are called upon to be reasonable. They are offered rock-solid values. They are told in great detail that decolonization should not mean regression, and that they must rely on values which have proved to be reliable and worthwhile. Now it so happens that when the colonized hear a speech on Western culture, they draw their machetes, or at least check to see they are close to hand. The supremacy of white values is stated with such violence. The victorious confrontation of these values with the lifestyle and beliefs of the colonized is so impregnated with aggressiveness that as a countermeasure, the colonized rightly make a mockery of them whenever they are mentioned. And here endeth the reading. Now take what we've just read and compare it to the rhetoric that leftists use today. Whiteness is this oppressive thing. It is very aggressive. It has impregnated all of these other cultures. It's destroyed them. It maintains itself through this hegemonic violence or threat of violence. It is white supremacist. It can kill non-white people with absolute abandon because the system will cover it all up. The system of whiteness will aggressively and violently do everything possible to advantage white people and disadvantage black people, including killing every non-white person. Not only will it do this to you physically, it will do it to you spiritually, via the white man's church that will destroy and corrupt your soul. And anytime you as a non-white person say, hey, I think this is a little bit wrong, I think this is going too far, the system will tell you, now, be reasonable and only do what we tell you to do. Only behave in the way your white betters tell you to behave. Be more white. Is it then any wonder that when Fanon talks about decolonization, he says it reeks of red-hot cannonballs and bloody knives? Why he defends the non-white people rising up to take what belongs to white people. And he defends this with force. Keep your machetes near. Take them up. Go to the colonist's house. Kill him so that you can be free. Sit at his table. sleep in his bed, rape his wife. This is decolonization. This is the process by which things get decolonized. Whiteness as a set of ideas needs to be removed. That means they have to get rid of the Geist of this, the Hegelian Geist that we've mentioned many times. So you have to get rid of the white man's church. But from whence does this Geist rise? Well, it comes from the colonizers. It comes from the white people. Thus, the inevitable conclusion of this is to kill white people, to erase them from existence. Any time you hear people talking about decolonization, this is what they mean. Violent revolution that kills the colonizer. So the reason they try to do things like remove whiteness, and they want to attack all of these cultural things, such as the term Anglo-Saxon or the concept of the Anglo-Saxons, it goes alongside the smug leftists, oh well, what even is English identity? What does it even mean to be British? What does any of this mean? What is it really? The entire point of this is to deconstruct the Geist. It is to deconstruct the spirit. It is to invalidate the spirit of that people. In the same way that they believe the white man's church has destroyed the spirit, the Geist of the non-whites. And then you hit the classic point of the Marxist inversion, the quite nihilistic inversion, whereby that which is last must be made first. As the whites via colonization made blacks last, now blacks must do so to whites. It is, at its most fundamental level, pure racial hatred. So, there you go. Anytime someone talks about the need to decolonize anything, just call them what they are. An anti-white, communist, Marxist, racist. And when they try to deny it, which they always do, bring up these names, bring up these books, throw the evidence right in front of them and say, this is your canon of literature. Stop lying to me.